Hello and welcome. I am here today to talk to you about the Suit of Pentacles in our continuing journey of the study of tarot. I'm Lady Rose of Goddess Garage, and I'm happy that you could be here to listen to me talk about the Suit of Pentacles. So the Pentacles overall represent our material plane. And more often than not, they speak about money, because money is what creates our ability to buy the things in our material plane. So the five-pointed star on each of the coins, the gold coins, is actually the pentacle. That's why it's called the Suit of Pentacles. So some people get a little afraid of this sign, but this is actually the symbol of the god Hermes, who is the god of alchemy and is the god of finances and commerce and things like that. So that's why this symbol is here, because it represents the god of Hermes, which is alchemy, which is turning things into gold, thus the gold coins, and then of course commerce and finance, which is always easier when you have gold coins in your pocket. So like I said, they very much address the material world. They talk about money in particular, but they can talk about our house, our car. They can talk about a lot of other things in our material plane, including things like our family relationships often come through in the Pentacles. Both positive and negative sides can come through in this. This is probably the hardest one to deal with emotionally speaking, because a lot of people have emotional hang-ups around money. Money is a very emotional thing that people often want to disconnect themselves from, because we've been told a lot of negative things to do with gold, money. Often when you think of those things, you think of greed, and I don't want to be greedy, and I don't want to be ungenerous, that sort of thing. But money really is, and pentacles and gold coins and everything that goes along with it, is something that we need to find that balance with, because we are in this material plane. We need the money to pay our bills, to buy our food, and that sort of thing. So it's about finding balance. A lot of times when these ones come up, it is often about finding that balance in your life, because we've all heard the term money is the root of all evil, and a lot of us firmly believe that. And really, money is energy. It's not good or bad. It's the person wielding that energy that maybe has good or bad intentions behind it. So you can create blocks as far as money goes, and I talk about this a lot in my manifesting sessions and courses that I do. And believing that it's an evil thing creates a block, but also being afraid of money. Some people get so hung up on the evilness and the potential I could become a bad person with money, that they create a fear around money. And fear in of itself, whatever it's surrounding, creates blocks and creates a stagnation and an inability to bring light into that situation. So think about your attachment to money. I often do an exercise of pulling out a $5 bill and just looking at it and seeing what your first knee-jerk reaction is about it. So I do that a lot, and that's something you can meditate on. You can actually pull out a bill out of your wallet and meditate on it and just kind of see what are your first reactions about it. What are the first words that pop into your mind? Because it's a very telling exercise as to what your attitude towards money is. And then from there, once you acknowledge if there's some hang-ups you have about money, then you can change them, but you can't change them until you know what the hang-ups are. So it's always good to sort of examine your relationship with money, because it's an energy like everything else. Some of the, and by blocking it and the material goods, not only can you create poverty physically speaking, but you can also create a spiritual poverty as well. Not to say that you have to have lots of money and just always be getting money, but watch for what your attitudes are towards money. Some people don't need money to live. They're like, oh, you know, I don't need much, and that's okay. But are you doing that because you're creating blocks towards money? Are you not allowing it in? That sort of thing. So it's always good to examine those things. So and it's good to know what some people's hang-ups are if you're going to be reading the tarot cards, because you're going to be dealing a lot with money. It's a top question. It's one of the suits that's, surrounding that is money. So get to know your relationship with money. Get to know what some of the more popular hang-ups around money are, what some of the worries are, and some of the mindsets about money. And, realize that money and you and money and everybody else is all a relationship. It's another relationship that we have to kind of become comfortable with. So some of the positive aspects of the Pentacles are being connected to Earth, because it is the material plane. It's all about Earth. It's the Earth element. So that's the element it incorporates, is Earth. So by being connected, you love nature, you love animals, you really have a connection with animals. The Queen is often portrayed as a real animal lover in a lot of the cards. In this one, she has some animals on her throne, but in a lot of other decks, she often has like animals around her because she is an animal lover. She's also, I know I'm skipping through the deck a little bit, but she's also known as the domestic goddess of the tarot world. She's the minor arcana domestic goddess. The Empress is obviously the major arcana domestic goddess, but she's definitely sisters with the Empress. So she embraces a lot of that same kind of abundant, flowing, things are good kind of energy. You can see that there's a river behind her, and, she's just sitting there, covered with or surrounded by an arbor of roses and mountainous scenery, and the sky is nice and bright and yellow, and there is a bunny here. I just noticed that. He's kind of hiding. So bunnies are about, well, if you know what bunnies do, they make a lot more bunnies, so they're about abundance, but they're also about family and creating those family units and gatherings and things like that. And then, she's surrounded by lots of greenery and nature and stuff like that. So she's known for being a domestic goddess as well, and having that same kind of energy that the Empress has. But she has it more on an everyday level, whereas the Empress is more about the spiritual, the big swings in life kind of thing. So, getting back to some of the positive aspects of the Pentacles, it's about generosity, being generous, being loyal. So if you're asking questions about someone and you tend to get a lot of Pentacles about that person, then it often means that they're very generous, they're very loyal, they're nature lovers, they're very attached and connected to the earth. They're sort of salt of the earth type people. It can also speak to financial rewards and gifts and sort of things like that. It can also speak to your luck. Often this means good luck is coming in to your life, and therefore, often finance gains come behind that, or good news and that sort of thing, right? It's also about success and the stability that success brings, because, if you're stable on the earth plane, you're pretty much stable everywhere else, or at least you can bring attention to other places. It's very hard to spiritually grow when you don't know where you're going to sleep that night. It's very hard to spiritually grow when you don't know where your next meal is coming from. So this is a very important aspect of tarot. This is a very important suit, because this is the suit that is truly about stability. Because like I said, until you're stable on the earth plane, it's very hard to grow in any other area, because your body needs nourishment, your body needs shelter, your body needs cleaning, your body needs care on a physical level before you can put attention to the spiritual or the mental realms or anything like that. So keep that in mind. Don't dismiss it. A lot of readers will dismiss it sometimes and not realize the importance of this suit. It's also about pride and work well done. It's also about honing your craft. Sometimes it speaks to upgrading your skills or some form of education. I know swords speak specifically to education, but this can also be about upgrading and education in the sense of specifically for your career, not just, I mean, not just, but not necessarily going back to school in the formal sense, but in a more informal and an upgrading kind of way. So it can speak to that as well. Now, some of the negative aspects, it can speak to negative family connections as well as good connections and family gatherings. It does speak to a couple of those in this. It can speak to being mean and stingy if it's sort of a negative aspect. So if you're, again, looking at a person, you want to know what they're like or whatever. If you're getting the negative aspects of these cards, it can be, oh, well, they're really mean, and they can be a little sharp-tongued and, kind of stingy with their money or stingy with their love or stingy, like that's just sort of an energy that they have. It starts on the physical, and, it can also bring on judgmental ideas because when, if they're not generous, then they're often judging. Or it can be you, like maybe you're being a little too judgmental, or maybe you're being very generous and that sort of thing. So it can be about those things. Coveting things is a negative aspect. So if you're comparing yourself, or if someone else compares a lot, if you're talking about someone else, if you're talking about yourself, are you coveting? Are you being jealous about what that person has, about the success they have, the relationship they have, the paycheck they have, the car they have, or whatever? Because that's a form of fear, which is a block, right? So these are all things that we can explore with the Pentacles. It can talk about unemployment that is either here or coming or in the past, and how it's affected you. Because when you go through an unemployment, a lot of people don't always associate these things, but when you lose a job, you often will grieve it, and you're going through a grieving period. So you have to allow that grieving process to happen, so that you can go into your next job, whether you have it already or not, but so that you can go into it sort of more clear-headed and understanding that I was grieving this last job. And it's not that, like you can get into a new job without having grieved that next job, but maybe there's hang-ups in this new job because you haven't fully recognized that you were grieving your last job. So allowing those emotions of grief to come through, and knowing that I'll never be able to go back to that job because maybe it just doesn't exist anymore, or, it was bad terms, not seeing eye to eye. Maybe you got straight out fired because you screwed up in some way. So it's like, okay, that's no references there kind of thing. I mean, we've all made mistakes, right? So that's another thing. Like if it's a past unemployment, is there some grieving process that needs to kind of be tied up or have some closure of some kind? And unemployment can also create that instability of not being sure of yourself, especially if it was a rough unemployment, like you got fired because you screwed up, and now you're a little gun shy of, am I going to screw up again? Whether it was right or wrong, whether the boss was right or wrong in firing you, and, like he thought I did this, but I really did that. And, yeah, maybe I screwed up a little bit. I didn't screw up as bad as he thought, but, that sort of thing. But it can still, it rocks your self-confidence a little bit. So now you're not going into your next employment with the same strength, the same confidence, that sort of thing. So those are all things to look at. It can talk about being shallow, because of course if you're being greedy about money, and you're just always wanting it, or you're always, I only want to buy a BMW, and I only want to wear designer clothes, and I would never go to a secondhand store, and that's a little bit shallow. And maybe, like you take that attitude into other things, right? Relationships and that sort of thing. Being gullible is also another thing that can come up with this as a negative aspect. So, if you're being asked to do something, there's a couple of cards that are kind of warning cards in here, because we all have moments of gullibility. Just because you have a moment of it doesn't make you a gullible person, because we've all been tricked before, right? And it's like, oh, okay, now I see what you're doing there, right? So, sometimes it can be a bit of a warning of you're going into a situation that's gonna make you look gullible, or you're going to be gullible and you're gonna believe this person and that sort of thing. It can also speak about loneliness, because sometimes when, you know, if we're overworking, if we're workaholics and money is the end game for us, or that's all we concentrate on is money or material goods or that sort of thing, we can isolate ourselves. Even a more negative, hoarders, for instance, right? They surround themselves with physical things to the point of a mental health issue, but what they're trying to do is make connections, and they are so isolated because they won't let anyone in their homes because they know they have an issue, and yet they still try to make those connections, but they're just not figuring out how to do it, and they keep collecting more and more kind of stuff. Thus they're hoarders, right? So it can speak to that kind of isolation as well. So those are all kind of things like to talk about when the Pentacles come up. So it isn't just money. So the Ace of Pentacles is usually a great card to come in because aces always are. They always bring gifts for the most part. I mean, there are negative aspects to aces, but very rarely is an ace a negative thing. I mean, the heavens are literally opening up and handing you a gold coin. And then there's this beautiful archway, right? So it's literally a doorway here into a new place, into a beautiful, wonderful place. And I'm just realizing there's lilies and roses on here. Lilies and roses are a big theme throughout the Rider Waite Smith deck. Lilies represent the masculine energy, roses represent the love and the feminine energy. So there's balance, right? So there, a lot of times there's balance that's being talked about with this card as well. So that's the ace. So now we go into the Two of Pentacles, and it kind of looks like the Fool a little bit, right? So how I remember what this card is often about, you can see that the waves are a little up and down. I mean, they're predictable, right? And there's two ships and they look kind of silly because, you know, one's right on top of the wave there. And twos, a lot of people think of twos as balance, but twos really in the tarot are about choices. Now this card is actually nicknamed the moving card. So a lot of times when this card shows up, it means there's going to be a move that's going to happen in your life. Now it could be a move of a new home. It could be the move of a new job. There's all kinds of different little moves that can happen in our life. But it is nicknamed the moving card, thinking about home and job, that sort of thing. So even when you're going to, you know, you're moving from one house to the other and the new house is beautiful, much bigger, you know, you've got your gift wrap room in there and it's like everything you could dream of is in this beautiful new home. It's still a little topsy-turvy when it happens, right? You still feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going in all different directions. Moves are stressful. Moves are up there with death and divorce as far as stress goes. Because you have to pack up all your stuff and you got to make sure it doesn't get broken and you got to drag it all the way to wherever you're going, and then you got to unpack it and you got to figure out, you know, well, even before you move, you got to figure out what you're taking, what you're not taking. Then when you get to the new place, you got to figure out where is everything going. There's a lot of decisions and people get a little overwhelmed when it comes to decisions sometimes. And so it takes some time. So it feels like you can see that these aren't really rough, mean, stormy kind of waters because the sky is nice and blue. They're just a little, you know, okay, we're going up, we're going down, okay, we're going up again, that sort of thing. And this guy's trying to balance the coins and that sort of thing. So this often talks about a move that's going to happen. And twos are about that decision. So it's a decision card as well. So there you go for number 2. Now we move on to number 3. So the Three of Pentacles is a very interesting card. It has a lot of elements to it. And I love to look at the Three of Pentacles and every other deck to see if these elements have been incorporated. So you can see that there's a guy here standing on a bench and he's got a maul or a hammer in his hand and he's up against the wall like he's been chiseling something in. They're obviously in some kind of church or cathedral or monastery, that sort of thing. There's a monk here, right? And then there's this person here, and a lot of people don't know who this person is. This actually represents someone who's educated. It could be the 3 classes that used to be around in medieval times. You know, the educated higher class, the monks, and then the workers. So this is the working class, right? So, and the Three of Pentacles talks about coming together. bringing collaboration. When this card shows up in a reading, a lot of times it means, yes, what you're doing, you're spot on. You're on the right path. I love when this card shows up because it often means you're on the right path as far as life goes, whatever decisions you've made, especially pertaining towards money and job and career, that sort of thing. However, right now in your job, career, whatever you're planning, your projects in life, that sort of thing, you need to team up. So you need to seek out the advice of other people, or you need to bring some kind of collaboration in. Now, like I said, this often will represent the 3 classes. Now, he's elevated on a bench, so it often means you're going to be elevated in some way. So your skills are going to be elevated, or your knowledge is going to be elevated in some way. The monk represents the divine, of course, right? God and heaven and that sort of thing. And this represents your mind. This represents your physical side. Okay, so this can be about you bringing everything together, bringing your subconscious and conscious mind together. Because you'll notice that this outside here is gray matter, right? And this is dark. So this is your subconscious mind. The dark part is your subconscious mind. The gray part is your conscious mind. And it can sometimes talk about bringing your subconscious and conscious mind together. These 2 things need to be aligned in order to bring in whatever it is you're looking to bring into your life. It can also mean literally bringing people into your job or your project to have it finished, teaming up with co-workers or whatever. There's also 3 pentacles, obviously. And the pentacles again speak about the god Hermes, but the pentacle itself, and they're actually pentagrams because they're in circles here, but the pentacle itself is about man, right? So it's mind, body, spirit, and then spirit's at the top, and then the rest of them are points of the physical realm and coming together. So these 3 are about they speak to 3s in life, like the Holy Trinity, and bringing those 3 elements or 3 levels together. You also have a rose here. You'll notice too here that there's a circle with an even sort of cross in it representing the 4 directions. The pentacles talk about this is a pentacle. The pentagram is just the star. Sorry, I got those 2 mixed up. But anyways, this is speaking about the 4 directions. These speak to the elements: earth, fire, water, and air. And then this is spirit. This is more the 4 directions. So it's about bringing the directions and the elements all together and making them work together. Then we've got this 5-petaled rose. You'll notice that roses occur quite often in the Rider Waite Smith deck. I'm not sure what these are, but I suspect they're roses, and the red roses. So there's white roses and red roses in the tarot. So this might be roses too, but I noticed that there's red roses in the 9 of Swords. There's red roses in the Magician. There's red roses on the cape of the Hierophant. And if you remember, there were red roses here in the Ace of Pentacles. So the red roses in the Rider Waite Smith tarot represent the female energy, because remember I pointed out the white lilies are the male, red roses are the female. In the Hierophant, the red roses here, female. The white lilies here, male. It's man and woman coming together with the Hierophant. Then here we've got the Magician. He's got the red roses here, female, and the white lilies here, male. And he's all about showing us the connection to both heaven and earth. And he's got the elements here, the suits on the table, nice and flat and even. So he's about balancing that energy. So he's got both the male and female energy. Here, we've got the red roses here on the bedspread. Now this one speaks to, you know, your suffering's over, the solution is coming. And instead of being balanced with lilies, I mean that perhaps there are a few lilies, but actually on the other side, the blue part of here are the zodiac signs, about knowledge, right? So it's about emotionally connecting your brain and your heart together and getting that solution. There you go. So that's the red roses. I was talking about the white roses here. So let's see where the white roses are. So there is a white rose also on the death card, and it is a five-petaled white rose. We also have a five-petaled white rose in the hands of the Fool here, who's about the beginning of things, being that childlike, innocent, and talking to our inner child, speaking to our inner child, speaking to our soul, finding out what our drive and our passion is. And this is death, obviously, but death, as you know, very rarely means death in tarot. And we've got it repeated here in the Three of Pentacles. And what the white rose represents is regeneration and rebirth. That's why white roses are often the more common one being given at funerals, because they're about going to that next level, to that next plane, and that next stage. So they're very much like an ace in that way, that they're about opening a gateway, a doorway that we are about to go through. So a lot of times when this card shows up, it's about collaborating together, whether it's bringing elements within yourself together and getting them aligned, whether it's your conscious mind and your subconscious, or whether it's, you know, spiritually speaking inside you, or whether it's literally bringing some people together and making this project happen. It will happen, and it will take you to that next level. So that's Three of Pentacles. Then we've got the Four of Pentacles here. And we've got, fours are interesting because they're always rest cards. And he's clearly resting. He's sitting down. He's got a nice, it looks like almost like a fur cape around him, or a nice blanket of some kind around him, keeping him warm and cozy. He's got pentacles here for slippers almost, where he can rest his feet. Maybe they're warm pentacles and he's keeping his feet nice and warm. He's resting his hand on a pentacle, and then there's a pentacle on top of his head, on top of his crown, no less. So, and he's sitting on, it's not a throne, it's just a bench, but he's outside of the town, right? So fours, I always say, are level up numbers. You can't level up in life until you see a four come into it. You'll hear me repeat all the time. And fours always talk about the rest that you need before the leveling up happens, because once you level up, you're going to be very busy. So this is a resting card. This is also a card to tell you to stop spending right now. Stop spending, conserve your resources, because you'll thank me later. I can't tell you the number of times I've told people that in a reading, and they're like, I'm so glad you told me that, because 3 weeks later my car broke down. I don't predict that sort of thing. I'm not a fearmonger, but I will tell you when it's time to kind of start saving your money, you know, for whatever reason. It's not always a car breakdown. It's not always a bad thing. It could be also this big opportunity came up, and thank God I was saving my money, because now I can invest the $1,000 that I need to get into this. Otherwise, I would have spent it all and not gotten into this. So there's also that example that's happened as well. So it's good and bad, you know. It's so if I tell you to save your money, it doesn't mean your car is going to break down or your roof's going to blow off or anything like that. It could be either or. But when the tarot does say it's time to kind of slow down the spending, conserve, listen. And this is a good card to listen to. And rest. Spend your time at home reading a good book that you've already got on your shelves. Because if you're like me, I have millions of books that I haven't read yet. Yes, they're on the to read list. And geez, I wish I could read by osmosis. But you can't. You got to sit down and actually read them. So, you know, if you're trying to save money, sit down, read a book you've already got on your shelf. Eat a good home-cooked meal, saving money from going out. That's what a 4 is. And go to bed early. So that's what a 4 is. And then we move into a 5. Now, 5s always look not good in tarot. I always joke about that. But in particular, 5s of Pentacles look really bad. It's always people like, this guy's got 2 crutches, and he's obviously been hurt. They're wearing rags. That she's got bare feet in the snow, no less. And they look cold and they look poor, and it's snowing and they're just outside a church. Now, usually there's a church of some kind involved in the Five of Pentacles because often people are looking for alms or some form of charity. So the Five of Pentacles is a hope card though, because it is about turning that corner. It's you've been like this. You've been in this situation. You've been, oh my gosh, like maybe not to the point of you don't know where your next meal's coming from, but things are tight. Maybe you're a little behind on the money, or maybe things are so tight there's like absolutely no extras happening, that sort of thing. And it hasn't been fun. And you're not sure you can afford your next, car payment or something, right? It's always like you're holding your breath until, okay, it shows up. And no one likes to live like that, right? So this is about you've had some hard times financially speaking. You've been suffering a little bit. You've been denying yourself because, you got to feed the family, that sort of thing. But things are about to turn the corner. So that's the hope. And, divine help might be coming in. This is also a card to remind you, and often I do remind my clients, ask your angels for help. Because the divine is here for a reason. They're not looking at the divine. And sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, when your material plane is rocking, it's hard to spiritually connect. So they're not looking at the divine, even though they're beside it. Sometimes in different tarot decks, they're in the church, that sort of thing. But often they're, sort of thinking, oh my gosh, I just got to know where this next meal is coming from, and it's not coming from God, kind of thing, right? Like, because you sort of start to think, well, he's not handing out the money, but the divine is here. But the cool thing about the divine is that we were given free will over and above the angels. The angels don't have it. As humans, that's one of our gifts, is that we have free will. And the free will contract says our angels cannot interfere in our life until we ask them. And they are begging us to ask them all the time because their purpose is to help us. And if we ask for help, then they can help us. They cannot interfere though. So remember that, because sometimes we get so distracted in our own little pity party that we forget, oh yeah, I got that guardian angel, or I've got a couple angels here with me that want to help me. Ask them for help. Ask them for help and they will help. But you gotta ask. That's the trick. Now this card also in the negative connotation can be, I mentioned it earlier, a pity party. Perhaps you're having a pity party. I tend to focus on the hope of the five, and the hope also too of the pity party is that you're going to suddenly take the blinders off and be able to see what the bounty that you do have in your life. Because all of us have been ingrateful in some time in our life, or been like, oh, poor woe is me, look at how bad I'm suffering. And then realizing, well, I have a roof over my head, I have a bed to sleep on, I got lots of snacks in the cupboard, it's not, my life isn't that bad, kind of thing, right? So it's about shifting, and that's what fives are always about, transition and shifting. So this can also be a shifting card, a card where maybe you're not poor, but you feel poor, or you feel put upon, or you feel like everybody else is getting a break but me, and what's your attitude? Are you not even looking for help from the divine? Are you not looking for help from around? Are you not being grateful for what you have? That sort of thing. So this is sort of the negative side of that card, that it can be. It can also speak to greed as well a little bit. So then we move into the 6. And 6s are usually pretty jolly numbers. And this one, even in the reversed, is still, it's not that bad. 6s reversed are, or, in the negative context. I don't really do reversals, but I do negative and positive. So when you're talking about the positive side, 6s are, the 6 of Pentacles are all about having things just right in place. Your ducks are in a row. This is awesome. You can see he's got 6 pentacles over his head. He's obviously well dressed for the day. He's got scales in his hand and they're balanced. Not one's tipping out over the other. He's, so generous. He's feeling his generosity that he's giving out money to these poor beggars that, you know, need a little hand up. And they're both smiling and they both seem grateful for the fact that he's able to do this. And, you know, if this is you, you're happy to be able to do it. So sometimes this is called, or what I call a karma card. So this also too is a reminder that this might be a good time to pay it forward. Because you're going to have a little bit extra. And, you know, like even if it's just, you know, a loonie or a toonie or something, those are Canadian terms for $1 and $2, to give to that homeless guy on the corner, or to give to the guy that's playing the fiddle on the street kind of thing, right? So it's a good time. I always say when this card flips up, if you're being asked to donate, to maybe give a little time, not to the point of spreading yourself too thin, but this is a good time to say yes to some of those things, because you can help counteract your karma debt or earn some extra karma points, that sort of thing. So paying it forward, right? So keeping in mind that we all have karma debt. You know, like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm scoring some karma points. It's like, yeah, we've all done things in past lives that we're not proud of, because every one of us wants to be Cleopatra, of course, in our past life, but not all of us were. And some of us did some things we probably aren't proud of. It doesn't mean you're a horrible person in this life. It just means you have some karma debt to pay off. We all do. You're not the only one. So it's always good to find ways to help your karma debt, you know, so that when you go into the next plane, you can say, look, these are all the wonderful things I did. How much does that pay off in my karma debt? Do I have a positive balance now? Because that's what we're all striving for. And, you know, to help counteract anything that maybe you've done in this life that you're not proud of. Because there's always those moments where it's like, yeah, I was kind of bitchy there, or it was a little bit mean there, or whatever, right? We all have those moments. This can also speak to, in the negative aspect, because I don't really find karma is a negative thing, when it's like, just pay it forward a little bit more than you normally would and be mindful about it. But the negative aspect might be that you're letting money slip through the cracks a little bit too. It's not like you're, you know, wasting thousands of dollars a month. It's just the odd thing here and there. Maybe you're, you know, letting a couple of things slip through. It's coming up because the tarot is saying you might want to take an eye on, or keep an eye on it, or it's time to kind of look at your bank account, maybe balance your bank books or whatever. Maybe take a look at your investments, you know, look at your insurance policies. Are you paying too much? Is it time to renew these things? That sort of thing. A lot of times this card will come up when those things kind of need to have an eye on them for whatever reason. And more often than not, I get messages afterwards saying, you know, you're right. I took a look at this and I was spending too much, or I had, you know, this much and I thought I had that much, and, you know, that sort of thing. So I've always gotten positive feedback when I said, this is kind of telling me a negative aspect, and the negative aspect is you need to take a look at your investments, your accounts, your insurance, those kind of money things that we tend to, you know, I've got it automatically withdrawing from my account. I never have to look at it again. Things we avoid, right? So those are things that, you know, like you need to take a look at. That's sort of a negative aspect, because it's usually something we put off. And sure enough, people often find that money's been slipping through the cracks because that card came up. So now we've got the 7 of Pentacles. And the 7 of Pentacles, you can see that this guy's leaning on his garden tool, his hoe or shovel or whatever it is he's using there. And he's got this sort of bushy kind of beanstalky kind of growth beside him. And there's 7 gold coins hanging off of them. So what the 7 talks about, the 7s are often very strict, very serious kind of things. So what this 7 is talking about, this actually is one of the nicer 7s, and this one's talking about you've done a good job, you've worked hard, and now it's time to reap the rewards. And you've got this money bush sitting outside your door, and you just go and pick the pentacles off as you need them. This can also mean that you need to put your nose to the grindstone, because you won't get this reward if you start to be lazy. Because remember, I said one of the negative aspects of the pentacles is laziness. So or I think I spoke of that. Anyways, it is one of the negative aspects because Pentacles, you work to get your Pentacles. So if you're not working or you're being lazy, then you don't get your Pentacles, right? So this is all about also being a hard worker, studious worker. This can also talk about dotting your I's and crossing your T's, making sure you're pruning in the right places, you're watering at the right times, you're pulling the weeds, that sort of thing, so that you have a bountiful harvest. This can also speak to a harvest is about to come in, so don't give up yet. Okay, so a lot of times we'll quit right before we go, no, this isn't working out for me. You know, I've been trying and trying and trying, and then we walk away and boom, then it shows up or whatever. So often this is also in a positive aspect that don't give up yet. I know you feel like you've been working your bones to the grindstone, and I know you feel raw right now, but you're just about, like, you're this far away. Just keep going. So this is a keep going card too. So that's the hope of that 7. Now we've got the 8. So we've got the 8, and we've got 8, or actually 6 pentacles up this way. We've got 1 on the ground and 1 that he's creating, that he's in the middle of still making. So this often shows up when it's a time to look for opportunities to upgrade your craft, whatever it might be. So, or to find a new way to do your craft, whatever it might be. So this often is about education, but it's also about opportunities. It's about being in that right place at the right time, knowing that you've got the skill and you're only upgrading. It's not about a brand new skill. It might be about a new way of approaching it, but it's not about a brand new skill. It's about upgrading what you already do, or taking a new perspective, or doing a new way, an innovative way of doing what you do. Because this is an oak tree here, and these pentacles are all nailed to the oak tree, so to speak. They're all hanging off the oak tree, and the oak tree is about stability. And it's also about you've grown. This is how much you've grown, and you've got skills. So sometimes this is a card to remind someone that they've got the skills already. They just need to hone it, make it even better. You know, you've got this other one over here. This is on the ground, your connection to the ground, because these guys are all going to the air. So you're still connected. And this is about you spending that time in honing your craft and getting better at what you do, in improving the way you do the things, adding knowledge. Because so many times we get into a job and we just stagnate. You know, it's like, well, I know how to do this job. I know what I'm doing. And we don't try to necessarily upgrade our skills or to add more knowledge, even if it's just for our own benefit. You know, even if it's not, you know, it's going to add to your paycheck or get you a better title at work or get you that corner office or that front parking spot or whatever. Even if it doesn't add to that aspect, just knowing that I have extra knowledge because I've put the time and effort into it sometimes creates that strong, sturdy oak, that confidence at work kind of thing. So that's what that card tends to speak to. The 9 of Pentacles. So the 9 of Pentacles, you can see that there's this woman. She's in her garden. She's in a lovely dress. I'm not sure what that flower is. And there's 2 different sort of flowers, it looks like. But anyways, but she's also surrounded by grapevines, which are often about festival, abundance, you know, wine, of course, right? So flowing wine. And she's got a falcon. So this is a woman of luxury. This is not a woman who's suffering in any way. So this is what this 9 is about, is that you've reached success, or yes, do what you came to do or what you're questioning whether you should do, because you will reach success to levels you haven't imagined yet. Because again, much like this guy with the money bush over here, she's got a bit of a money bush too. It's probably this guy who's been working on it for her. Because I don't think she does her own gardening, but maybe she does. But she's got a wall, a money wall, that's a hedge, a money hedge. And she can pick off those gold coins. She's got her hand on one while she's got some grapes in her hand too. You know, just to, you know, oh, yep, here it is. And then she's got her falcon, like I said, and she's, you know, looking very relaxed. It's all sunny and yellow, which is all about, you know, abundance and manifestation and bringing in gold and that sort of thing, right? So this is all about, yeah, you made it. You're doing the right thing. You're going to bring abundance to levels that you weren't even aware could come in. 9 is a good number. 9's about completion. So you're there. Awesome. You succeeded. Then you get into 10. So 10 is with a gift, right? 10s are completion with a gift. So you've got an extra coin, right? Now the placement of the coins actually makes the Kabbalah as well, that symbol there. So you've got animals here. You've got generations. So you've got a couple here, a man and a woman. You've got a grandpa guy here. You've got a child here. And remember I said Pentacles also speak about family relations, right? So when the 10 of Pentacles shows up, I'm just super happy for the person. Because not only is everything coming together for them in their life, like monetarily speaking, bills are paid, things are good, you've got extra to go on that trip, and you've got money in the bank that you've invested and are saving for down the road for whatever you might need it for, whether it's retirement or school funds or whatever it might be, you've got it in place. You've got a set of scales back here that are well balanced. Everyone's kind of smiling who's on here. You've got grapes. Remember the grapes from the girl there. And you've got two dogs here. So, you know, animals are coming together. Your connection to earth is coming together. And happy family relations. Because remember I said it was about family relations. So not only are things good as far as money and finances go and job, you've got a job, but family relations are doing really well. That's why you have the multiple generations on that card. So that's always good. So the 10 is a nice gift card, and that's what your gift is that everything's going swimmingly. You know, if there have been family issues, the next family gathering, you'll hardly notice them, or they'll be mended, or bridges are going to be fixed, that sort of thing. And then we've got the Page of Pentacles. Now I'm going to go really fast through the court cards because I do a special court card video. So pages always bring messages. So often it's a message about money. So often when a Page of Pentacles shows up, it can be, you know, if you've been waiting to hear back from a job, you're going to hear good news that way. You're going to get a little bonus in the mail, like maybe it's a unexpected check, or maybe, oh, you forgot about the GST check, so that's coming, yay, kind of thing. That's a little added bonus. So usually it's money related, whatever the message is, and that's the kind of message that you tend to get, kind of thing. Then we've got the Knight of Pentacles. So the Knights of Pentacles are about moving forward, but they're the planning stage. So you can see he's looking quite serious up on his black horse, and he's holding the pentacle quite steadily. It almost looks like he's holding it like this from the side, right? Like this kind of thing. Like he's holding it with both hands. He's looking pretty sturdy on his steed. So he's looking for stability. He wants to move forward, but he wants to move forward in that stable way. So often this means that there will be some movement forward. There's some planning that needs to happen. So it's very much like when you get a raise in your job, or you get a bit bigger paychecks suddenly. The old saying, a fish will grow to the size of its tank. It's amazing when you get that increase in pay, how quickly you get used to having that amount of money, and where it becomes necessary, like if you dropped in that amount of money, it's like, oh, we can't live, kind of thing. So this is about, you know, planning. When you get that increase in money, plan what you're going to do with the increase. Don't just willy-nilly it. Not that I'm a big financial guru, but, you know, it's just mindful spending, that sort of thing. Seeing where your money's going. So sometimes this is about, much like that other card that was, you know, check on your investments and do a financial checkup kind of thing. So that can be part of what that Knight of Pentacles is about. Of course, the Queens are where the movement really happens, because she is about movement forward, and she is about abundance coming in. So this means it's actually going to be happening. And when this card shows up, it usually means a successful business endeavor, whether it's through investment, whether it's through a project at work, You're going to, you know, do really well. You're going to be recognized. You're going to be seen as the leader. If you're starting your own business, yes, you know, this is the business to start. If you get a queen showing up, that means, yes, this is a business to start. It's going to be fruitful and financially rewarding for you. So then we've got the King of Pentacles. So the Kings, generally speaking, are about being the masters of that suit, right? So they're the masters of money. The Kings can also be about refocusing on money. So this can be talking about sort of paying attention. You can see he's holding that pentacle quite mindfully on his lap, and he's looking down at it thoughtfully. So this is often about, and he's got two Taurus heads up here, and Tauruses are the builders of the zodiac sign. Tauruses are ruled by Venus, who's all about beauty and aesthetics. So the King is very much about building that financial wealth so you have that beautiful aesthetic life that you can create for yourself, so you can create the haven, the nest that you can always come back to, kind of thing. He's got two more Tauruses down here too, by the way. So anyway, so he's got grapes all over his robe, and we've seen grapes before. They're all about abundance and the flowing of the wine, because, you know, when you're celebrating the fact that you're financially stable and well off, you want to share wine with your friends. So again, this can also be about mastering your money, but this can be about refocusing on your money. Sort of a, you know, again, a financial checkup, but in a more stringent way. This is like, you could take a look. It would be good to take a look, you know, make some plans, that sort of thing. This is more about, you need to take a look. You need to take a look right now, because things might be out of control a little bit. So this is definitely the heavier hitter of, there's about 3 cards in there that tell you to take a look at your finances, maybe make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. But when this guy shows up, it either means you are great financially, you have no worries, you are the master of money. And if you're not that master of money, it means you need to take a look at your money right now. So that's the Pentacles for you. So I hope that was informative, and I hope you subscribe to my channel. Thank you for being here and watching this video. I hope you learned something from it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I will be back on later with more tarot. Talk to you later. Bye.